Good morning. Bad accident on I-75. I'm sorry. We were in really bad traffic. Unfortunate situation there. So thanks for staying with us. We're sorry that we're late, but we're really happy to be back in Southwest Florida for the first time in 2023. And we know we'll be back many more times to do a whole host of different things. But today's announcement is really good. It was 4 years ago today that I came down to Bonita Springs. I think I had been in office for just a couple of days at that point back in January of 2019. And we came and we made an announcement that we were going to bring about a new era of stewardship for Florida's natural resources, for our water quality, and for restoration of our Everglades. We signed a major far-reaching executive order which laid out the vision, laid out the policy, and laid out the fact that we were going to put our money where our mouth is when it came to many of these important issues. And so we said we'd fight for the waterways, against the blue-green algae, things like red tide, working to better manage with the Army Corps Lake Okeechobee, also making sure that we recognize the importance of our water to our economy, our fishermen, our tourism industry. I had come to Southwest Florida in 2018 during the campaign, and you had a lot of the hotels and restaurants were doing very poorly because of some of the issues that were happening, a lot of the fishing. So we understood how important that was. So we decided to do something about it. And we made promises to do big things. And I'm happy to say that in the last 4 years, we've delivered on the promises that we made that day 4 years ago. And I'm proud to be joined by a number of folks. We have our DEP Secretary, Sean Hamilton, Chief Resilient Officer, Dr. Wes Brooks, Chief Science Officer, Dr. Mark Rains. And then one of the things we did that first 4 years ago, signed the executive order, but then we also took swift action and we replaced all the governing board members of the South Florida Water Management District. And so we have a number of folks from the district with us. Chauncey Goss, of course, people know from Southwest Florida. We also have the Vice Chairman, Scott Wagner, Alligator Ron Bergeron, Ben Butler, Charlotte Roman, Jackie Thurlow-Lipsish, and Drew Bartlett, who works for the district. So we appreciate what they've been doing. They've probably done more in these 4 years than the district has done any time in its history. And I think I can say you have a record amount of water that's now flowing south through the Everglades and into Florida Bay, and Florida Bay is doing as good as it's done in many decades, I think. So we needed them there managing these projects. We also have from Captains for Clean Water, Daniel Andrews, Chris Whitman, and Rhett Morris, all captains. I want to thank them for their support from really the beginning. We have Anna Upton from the Everglades Trust, and then from the Everglades Foundation, CEO Eric Eichenberg, Carlos De La Cruz with the Everglades Foundation, Kelly Cox, Audubon, Florida, Dr. Michael Crosby, where's he at? I didn't see. Okay, from CEO of Moat Marine. So one of the things that we did was we decided to basically resurrect the Red Tide Task Force. And we put money in not just with FWC, but also with a partnership with Moat Marine. So they're actually testing things to mitigate red tide blooms. And there's things that are promising, but we've put money in for research on that because, at the end of the day, I mean, red tide happens. It's not like it's something that we're necessarily doing. Maybe some of the things humans do contribute, but that's been happening since the 1800s. It's very well documented. But it has a big effect, and so is there things you can do to mitigate. So we've been able to do that, and they're working hard, and we're happy with that. And then we have Representative Adam Botana, Senator John Martin, and new Representative Tiffany Esposito. Where is she? Where are they at? Okay, welcome. So we said that we were going to seek 4 years ago 2.5 billion over my 4-year term for water quality, Everglades restoration, and those really key projects. That goal represented a $1 billion increase over the previous 4 years. And so there's a lot of people that were happy that we announced this and were pleased, but most people were not thinking we'd be able to deliver on that, just given that it was ambitious. Well, what we ended up doing over 4 years was not 2.5 billion, but $3.3 billion. And part of it is we were really committed to making a difference. We had good partners in the legislature, but part of it is the state has done well. We have big budget surplus. I mean, you had everybody and their mother was down in Florida over the last couple years. I mean, it's just crazy, the number of people that are down here at any given time. Of course, people moving here, but also visiting here. And we were really, I mean, by far, when you start talking about like 2020, 2021, I mean, we were number 1 destination by far. And so that has helped really fill our coffers. And we're even in most recent month, I think we were $450 million higher in revenue than was anticipated. And so, you know, those are things as you budget, that's money coming in, you know, not because there's taxes are changing, it's just because there's more economic activity and the economy's growing. And so that would not have been possible, you know, if we had turned Florida into a Fauciville. It would not have been possible. And so we had to make sure to do the right thing. So of the 3.3 billion, of course, there's a whole host of important things in that water quality. The chunk of that for Everglades restoration was almost as much, 1.7 billion was almost as much as the previous 12 years combined in the state of Florida. So that was really good. So we now have, since our efforts, we've been able to expedite projects, and so more than 50 Everglades restoration projects have either been completed, broke ground, or have hit a major milestone in the last 4 years. And so the pace has been great, and we want to make sure that we're keeping it up. Of course, we have had fewer harmful discharges out of Lake Okeechobee over these last 4 years than we had in the previous. That's just part of that is a function of working with the Army Corps to manage Lake Okeechobee differently. Part of it is we actually have technologies where we go in to mitigate some of the algae in the lake before it ends up leaving. So there's been a whole host of things that have been really, really good. We're going to continue doing on that. We also did 1.6 billion for water quality and supply improvements. So we established a wastewater grant program to update wastewater infrastructure, including in some parts of the state really needed this, converting septic to sewer, which is important. We've also done record funding to restore Florida's springs. We've invested in alternative water supply projects. And then, as I mentioned, the technologies to treat, predict, and respond to algae blooms, both the blue-green algae and the red tide. We've done more on that than I think probably in the whole history of the state when you think about what we've done. So we're proud to have done that. And of course, we have also signed substantive legislation. 2000, we signed the Clean Waterways Act, which was a big improvement for the state of Florida. We've also done things like do 1.1 billion in resilience projects to help fortify our communities. If you notice, when Ian came through, the things that had been more recently hardened or fortified did a lot better. In fact, you would not have had the power on in some areas for maybe 6 or 8 weeks, but you had some of the substations there had been big improvements to, because it was a strong enough storm. If it wasn't done, it would have knocked a lot of this out entirely, and you'd had no chance. So these things are important, and we want to make sure, and that's usually the local communities applying for a grant. We match the grant, and they can do things like really protect and fortify things like critical infrastructure. We also signed legislation. This was not in the executive order, but it's something that we did subsequent we did the Florida Wildlife Corridor, and so that's over $600 million. We've also done for land conservation, but that wildlife corridor is really a historic thing. There's going to be more that we do to be able to add to that, but that's going to be something that generations of Floridians will be able to enjoy. So we're really, really excited to have made good on promises and to show huge improvement and make big progress. And, you know, a lot of people always say they're going to do things and then they just never follow through, or they do it halfway. We followed through and we did it to the hilt. Now, lest you think that we're here today to kick up our feet and to soak in the sun, although it's a really nice day outside, that's not what we're here. We're here to put it into an even higher gear and make sure that we build off the progress and the success that we've had over these last 4 years. And so today, on the 4th year anniversary of our original executive order, we are signing another executive order, 23-06, to ensure that we continue our historic momentum and conserve Florida for future generations. And so there's going to be a whole host of things that we're going to be accomplishing with this. One, in terms of our Everglades and protection for water resources. 4 years ago, we pledged $2.5 billion over 4 years. This one, we're going to pledge $3.5 billion over 4 years. And we look forward to being able to do that, and we're glad we've gotten such great support. I'm also in this executive order directing the Department of Environmental Protection to identify and prioritize strategies and projects to expedite water quality restoration in the Indian River Lagoon, which is the most biologically diverse estuary in North America. So we've done a lot on Indian River since I've been governor. We are looking to establish an Indian River Lagoon protection program and to secure at least $100 million each year for projects to improve water quality. We're also directing the Department of Environmental Protection to expand partnerships to identify and prioritize projects to restore the Indian River Lagoon and to undertake enhanced water quality monitoring in the Indian River Lagoon. We're also directing the Department of Environmental Protection to work with the Florida legislature to expand our existing wastewater grant program to include other project types to address impacts from non-point sources like stormwater and agricultural runoff. So DEP will be working with local governments and water management districts to identify the most effective and beneficial water quality improvement projects. I'm also directing the South Florida Water Management District to continue expediting Everglades restoration projects, including projects that reduce the risk of harmful discharges and that will send more water south to the Everglades and Florida Bay. So we have a lot of the things we've been doing have been great. The feds are involved in the southern reservoir. They don't move quite as quick as we do, but we don't want to see this thing languish and get mired in bureaucracy. So we want to make sure that our water management district is holding the Corps accountable for progress so that we can continue to put points on the board. We're also going to ensure that the new LOSUM is implemented in a manner that reduces harmful discharges to the estuaries by holding water in the lake during the wet season and sending more water south to the benefit of the environment that will meet the needs of the communities. And that's been something that's been worked on for many, many years. Additionally, I'm directing DEP to strengthen basin management action plans. They call them BMAPs, to include the specific projects necessary to achieve our restoration goals, and they will be working with the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services on that effort. I'm also directing DEP to work with Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services to improve agricultural best management practices, which are important measures to reduce nutrients from entering our waterways, including obtaining site-specific data on BMP implementation. We'll also work to continue our progress towards reducing the frequency of algal blooms by we have one of the things I did in the initial executive order, we established a blue-green algae task force, as well as I mentioned the red tide task force. So we're going to continue to lean on those entities to provide additional policy solutions that we can undertake to continue to make gains in this regard. We are going to continue. We created a red tide emergency grant program that we successfully deployed last year in the Tampa Bay area, or what was it, last year or 2 years ago? Do you guys, 2 years? I think it was 2 years ago. We did, and what happens is, you know, you have a bloom, there'll be the fish, and it's terrible, but we have the grants, and the cleanup happens very rapidly, and it lets it recover quicker. When that festers there for days and weeks, it gets really, really bad, and it ends up creating a negative cycle. So we have that for red tide. We're also going to have a similar program for blue-green algae blooms. And so there'll be ways to be able to send, to mitigate. You know, we've got different companies that have been involved in mitigating the algal blooms. I got a company from Israel that's down there doing stuff in Lake Okeechobee. So we have the ability to mitigate, and it really makes a difference. And so those are, I think, dollars very, very well spent. We're also directing our Chief Resilience Officer and the DEP to continue our efforts to increase the resilience of our communities, particularly as we've seen with these major weather events. And we've done a lot, and we'll do more. We just passed the legislature just passed a big package in December to help with the hurricane-affected areas, not just Southwest Florida. You know, you actually had some on the east coast of Florida that got hit by Nicole, which, you know, Nicole was not the biggest hurricane in the world, but coming on the heels of Ian, which also, you know, effects were far inland and all the way to the East Coast. You know, you had major erosion of the coast. You had buildings that were falling in. So we're doing things like resilient coastlines. We're doing things, of course, like the Resilient Florida program. We also are going to establish a coral reef restoration and recovery initiative to increase coral and deployment to enhance coastal flood and storm surge protections. And so that's something that's very, very important, and we're going to continue to make progress there. So all being told, this may be a bigger, more comprehensive executive order than we did 4 years ago, but I think that's the right thing to do. You can make progress, you can do good things, and you just got to keep pressing forward. And I know we have so much momentum that I think you're going to see a lot of support in the legislature for this, and I think we're going to continue to be able to do good things for the people all throughout the state of Florida. So I'm excited to be able to sign this today. I'm excited to be able to sign this today, and I'm excited about continuing to make more progress in the future. And I'm also just glad that we could come back here 4 years to the day of our initial opening salvo when I first became governor and be able to say, promises made, promises kept. Amen. Okay, Sean Hamilton.
All right, I think I'm gonna go ahead and cancel all those vacations. Yeah. No, thank you, Governor. It's an honor to be here today to celebrate this historic occasion. As you think about the achievements that the governor outlined, and I think obviously we should be even more excited about what the future holds as we think about the momentum the governor just outlined in the executive order. And as you guys can easily tell, the governor has long recognized the importance of our water resources to our state, how they're fundamental to our life, to our environment, to our economy, and candidly, the unique ecosystems that make up Florida. And that's why exactly he said 4 years ago to today, he issued an historic executive order outlining that bold vision. The governor mentioned calling for $2.5 billion for Everglades restoration and water quality projects. And not only did we achieve that goal, I think whether depending on good or bad, he's kind of set the expectation what it looks like to achieve a goal. And so with that in mind, we look forward to doing everything as an agency to make sure we're a part of that and can come back, you know, maybe 4 years to the day and talk about how we blew that out of the water. So through these unprecedented funding investments, you know, the state has prioritized all of the things the governor talked about, expediting Everglades restoration, again, reducing those harmful discharges to our estuaries, creating a water grant program, a wastewater grant program that invests in advanced wastewater treatment, septic to sewer conversions, again, all about getting the nutrients out of our waterways, and investing $1.1 billion for the resilience of our communities. Again, a key foundation as we go forward. And one of my favorites, of course, is acquiring more than 170,000 acres of conservation land. That's nearly 4 times the previous 4 years, and that's what momentum looks like. And so, we've accomplished a lot. There's a lot more to be done. And this order directs the additional funding, the strategic action that will enable us to continue that momentum and our ongoing efforts to expedite critical Everglades restoration, employ sound science to protect and restore our waterways, fund infrastructure projects to improve our water quantity and quality, and improve the resilience of our communities. Again, Governor, thank you for the executive order as we look to do even more now for Florida's environment. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Chairman of the South Florida Water Management District, Chauncey Goss.
Thank you so much, Governor. It's a real honor to be here today, and welcome back to Southwest Florida. I know you've been here a lot more recently than you probably wanted to be, but I can tell you that as a lifelong resident of Sanibel, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you, your staff, and your team have done for Southwest Florida. And I just want to say thanks. So 4 years ago today, I wasn't chairman. I hadn't been nominated. I was a spectator in the audience, and I was standing down there, and it was really, really cold. And I don't know if any of you were here, but I just remember it being cold, really uncharacteristically cold for Southwest Florida. And I think you made a joke about Lambeau Field at the time, because I think it felt like Lambeau Field. And I remember thinking, okay, this new governor, he's been on the job for maybe a week or two. He just gave us this executive order. Who's going to do all this? And what's really interesting now is you say, okay, who's going to take those dollars and turn them into projects? And who's going to take this incredible challenge and make it so it's not a homework assignment, but make it so it's the opportunity of a lifetime? And that's what I came to find. The answer to that was partially the staff of the South Florida Water Management District, because I was not on the board at the time. I did not know the staff. I did not know the agency very well. And I cannot tell you how impressed I have been, because they have stepped up, and they are incredibly, incredibly capable. And these people, when you give them something to do, they do it. They want to be challenged, and this has been a challenge. So it's an incredible honor for me, and I know for my other governing board members, and for Executive Director Bartlett to be able to say to our staff, thank you for the last 4 years, and get ready for the next 4, because as the Secretary just said, there's not going to be a lot of vacation time. So in the last 4 years, we've got those 55 projects. They're either new starts, they're either completions, or we've reached major milestones. That's incredible. That's $2.5 billion, which is actually more than $2.5 billion. We've seen that expended very well. And it's not just the projects, and that's something that people focus on a lot. Is like, we're turning dirt, we're doing projects, but why? We're doing it for results. And that's what's really important, is we're starting to see the results now. We're starting to see better water quality down in Florida Bay. We're starting to see some differences in the way the birds are migrating, the way the birds are nesting. We're starting to see the results that we want to see, that are good for Florida's ecology and good for Florida's economy. And that's what this is really all about. So I'm so excited to be doing this. Working with you, Governor, has been awesome. And it's not just the projects, it's not just the results, but it's also the policies. We're looking at incredible policies here. We look at what we did with LOSUM, what the Corps has been doing with LOSUM. We have not had toxic discharges for a reason. It's because we're managing the lake better for a reason. It's because of this governor working hard with the district, working hard with the Corps to make sure it doesn't happen. So good things can happen. The future is just incredibly bright for Florida. Thanks.
And I know they're working on C-43 reservoir, so that'll be something I know that this part of the state will love to see when that is fully operational. Okay, CEO of the Everglades Foundation, Eric Eichenberg.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor. Yes, 4 years ago, I want to point out it was less than 48 hours after taking the oath of office that we were right here in Bonita Springs, where that executive order was unveiled. And as folks who have been toiling at Everglades Restoration and hearing that bold vision 4 years ago, I remember stating that it couldn't get any better. Well, it just did. And let's realize that the projects that have been outlined to restore America's Everglades, a natural treasure right here in our own state, cannot happen without dollars, resources, commitments to go towards these projects. The governor just mentioned the C-43 reservoir. There had been dreams about having a reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee that would store, clean, and send water south through the River of Grass, under the bridges of Tamiami Trail, and into Florida Bay. It wasn't until this governor took office and made that project the #1 priority to make sure it became a reality. And the state of Florida, under his leadership, has finished the stormwater treatment area that complements that reservoir. And thankfully, due to all the urging and the pressure and all the encouragement that the DeSantis administration has done, and the governor, the Army Corps, and the Congress is finally making that reservoir a priority. They followed his lead to make sure it happens. So today now, with reaffirming a $3.5 billion commitment from the state of Florida to have these projects finished, when Congress passed the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan in the year 2000, it outlined a 30-year plan to restore the Everglades. Thanks to this governor and this commitment today, we see the finish line by 2030. These projects will be finished. We will have a better water quality. We will have a better Everglades. We will be able to pass it on to the next generation. And today, Governor Ron DeSantis has cemented himself as the Everglades governor. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Captain Rhett Morris.
Hi there. I've been a fishing guide in the local waters of the greater Caloosahatchee estuary for almost 40 years. And in the time that I've been doing this for a living, I've seen a lot of changes, not really good changes until just recently. I currently support my beautiful wife, Joellen, as well as my amazing 6-year-old daughter, Sage Marie. And our family, along with many others, depends on clean water to make a living here in Southwest Florida. In the summer of 2018, I witnessed a red tide event that was recorded as the largest loss of marine life in Florida's history. This left myself and many other fishing guides with a very sinking feeling as to whether or not we were going to be able to continue to support our families off the waters here in Southwest Florida. Since that summer, a major change has happened in the political will here in the state. This incredible change took place the day that Governor Ron DeSantis came into office. From that day, this great man gave us his word. He promised to fight for us like never before, and fight for us he did. By committing state funding and efforts to restore and protect local waterways, which are the lifeblood of all of our coastal communities, things began to look better. We as local charter captains immediately rallied up behind Governor DeSantis to support his new, innovative ways that focused on keeping the beaches and waters clean in our area for the first time in decades. This proactive and refreshing new direction has really been a godsend to the entire Captains for Hire industry, as is Governor Ron DeSantis to the entire state of Florida. Yes, thank you. It is my heartfelt honor to stand up here today and represent many local captains who sincerely offer our collective gratitude by saying, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for making this momentous announcement you have today and showing us that you have a continued level of commitment to protect our livelihoods by leading the great state of Florida in a new direction that undoubtedly will bring on a brighter future for all.
Well, thanks so much. We really appreciate kind words. Also want to thank Coconut Jacks for hosting us here today. And I know they're going to be up and running, I guess, in just a couple weeks, right? They're working on getting everything situated. So I'd encourage everyone to come and check it out when they get back up and running after, so I can't believe how much water they had. I mean, it was unbelievable. So thanks for that. And, thanks everybody for supporting our efforts. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and are having a Happy New Year. We got a 6, a 4, and a 2-year-old, so it's like, it's like people, did you enjoy? Did you relax? And no, we did not relax, unfortunately, because you got toys, you got this. They're not in school and everything like that. But I will say, my wife and I were thinking about with the inauguration. We knew that the 2 is tough. Like they just so we knew that. But with the 6 and 4, we were like, guys, and they behaved very well. And we were very excited, and so the next day, my wife and I took them and got them some toys to thank them for being so nice. But the thing is, they get all these toys, and this wasn't true. I don't think when I was a kid. All this stuff is made in China, and a lot of it breaks. It's cheap stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, okay, you get it from China because it's cheaper to pay, but if it doesn't even last a week, then what difference does it make? So a lot of these things we got, we need to figure out Santa Claus may need to not do Chinese toys because let's just make it here, make it honestly anywhere, but not China. So it's really frustrating, but we're thankful for everybody, and some of you were able to come up last week, the inauguration. So I want to thank you for doing that, and we were happy to be able to ring in a new administration. And I think if you followed some of the headlines, you can see we're already at work very strongly. So with that, I'm happy to take a couple questions back there. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, a couple things. In your inaugural speech, you talked about this being the golden age of conservation. Do you feel that conservation has been neglected prior to your administration? And then what's your response to the Democratic chair then resigning?
Well, look, I think what we did is we've made this a priority in the state of Florida. And we did it partially because it's the right thing to do. I mean, I've said 4 years ago, and then I reiterated that on last Tuesday, we need to leave Florida to God better than we found it. It's just something that we have to do. Now, by doing that, you're also fortifying the economic engine that this state represents. I mean, the people that are coming to visit, they want to visit, they want to go to the beaches, they want to go fishing, they want to go boating, they want to do those things. So that's just the lifeblood of our state's DNA, and so it's the right thing to do, but it also reinforces, I think, our economic objectives. And the fact of the matter is, you look at our surplus, you look at all this stuff we've been able to do, and not just here. We just did the biggest toll relief program in the history of Florida. So there's people, and I know they have some tolls here, some parts of the state, it's like you can't commute to work without getting hit with these tolls. So that's a 50% reduction. You look at what we've done, we've raised teacher salaries, we did bonuses for police officers coming in from out of state. We've done so many different things. We did the biggest tax relief in Florida history last year. We're going to do much more this year. All of that is because the state has been managed well, and you have good fiscal stewardship, and you have this surplus, and so you're able to do a bunch of different things. And so I think it's just about what you prioritize. I know other people have done stuff in the past, but I think we've really kind of taken the bull by the horns and go forward. In terms of the resignation, of the other party's chairman, there ain't as many Democrats around as there used to be in the state of Florida, and we had something to do with that in November of 2022. And if you think this is the first time, so Tuesday after the inauguration, because it wasn't just the governor, it was all the cabinet members, it was the first time in 150 years that there's not a single Democrat in statewide office in the state of Florida. And that And 150 years ago, when that was the case, that was like Reconstruction, so it wasn't even like normal elections then. So really, I mean, in the modern era, it's the first time that that's ever happened. But I think that part of it is I think they have a knee-jerk reaction to anything I do, and I think it's put them in a corner where they're basically playing to the woke choir, which is a very small minority of people. I mean, so it's just they're not addressing issues I think that really matter to folks, and so they really need a whole course correction and a big overhaul. I don't think they're going to do it because I think the incentives are to continue to do what they're doing on an individual basis, and so they can sort all that out. I'm just happy that I was leading the charge to be able to win a historic victory in November. Yes.
For FEMA and state housing for storm victims?
I'll refer you to Kevin Guthrie on that. I mean, as you know, we've done our own state initiative, partially because we understand that can take longer. So I know he is working with them, but what we've basically done is if they're not doing it, we're kind of diving in on it. So Kevin has gotten trailers on people's property. The issue why states typically don't do that is because, unless they're guaranteed to get reimbursed, they're very hesitant to do that. And our view is look, we think we're entitled to be reimbursed for it, but we're not just going to sit there and twiddle our thumbs. If we can do it and then they fight us over it, fine, we'll have that battle. So that's basically what we've done. But he would know because he's in contact with FEMA about when exactly they are going to do. But I do think it was good that we decided, hey, let's be the first state to ever launch our own housing initiative. And it would have been better not to have to do that. But the reality is on these things, I think the speed of action, and if people consistently see progress being made, I think that's just good for the recovery. I also think it's good for morale. I mean, if you think about when those bridges opened, that was a big deal, obviously, to get people back and forth and the responder, and that was very important. But it was also just people that never even go to those islands, I think, felt better about it, just seeing all the trucks going across. And so that's, I think, kind of the thing with the housing is, yes, it's important for those people that get it, but if we can be making progress, and I know FEMA just takes a little bit longer, that's just the reality.
Can you touch on the homeowners insurance situation? That's a big deal for a lot of people.
Yeah, so the question's about the property insurance market. So the legislature passed a series of reforms in the special session in December, which really brings Florida in line with almost every other state that has functional insurance markets. Our market was really, I think, attracted a lot of litigation. It was very good for trial lawyers and assigning benefits to contractors, but it was not good for the consumer. And so I think those negative incentives were addressed in that bill. There was also an effort to provide an availability for buying reinsurance coverage because that market is in flux. Now, it's not just Florida, that's all around the world. So I think that they were very, very positive steps. But at the end of the day, the biggest problem that we've had is that for going back, 2006, 7, 8, they've chased companies out of Florida. So then you end up, you don't have any options. Of course you're going to pay more. The way you put a downward pressure is that one company knows you have 4 or 5 other options and they have to compete for your business. No one has been competing for anybody's business in Florida, and that's part of it. Now, having said that, we have the worst inflation we've had in 40 years. It costs a lot more to repair a roof today than it did just 3 years ago. That's just the reality. And so those costs that have escalated across the board in our economy are going to be reflected in different things across the board. Yep.
Can you talk about how your administration is looking into not only banning China from buying farmland, but also just any Florida property?
So my view on our economy is in Florida is, we don't want to have holdings by hostile nations. And so if you look at the Chinese Communist Party, they've been very active throughout the Western Hemisphere in gobbling up land and investing in different things. And, when they have interests that are opposed to ours and you see how they've wielded their authority, and especially with President Xi, who's taken a much more Marxist-Leninist turn since he's been ruling China, that is not in the best interest of Florida to have the Chinese Communist Party owning farmland, owning land close to military bases. But, my view is, and I think there's a broad agreement in those two, but my view is, okay, yeah, no farmland, but why would you want them buying residential developments or things like that? I don't want them owning subdivisions and things like that. I think that the issue is just going to be, I think people agree with that. The issue is going to be, yeah, obviously, if someone comes in and buys, it's not the CCP that's signing that. These are holding companies and all that. So you got to structure that in a way that will effectively police it. But yes, we do not need to have CCP influence in Florida's economy. We've already taken steps. We banned the Confucius Institutes from our universities and our state colleges, which they have used those Confucius Institutes across the country to basically bring propaganda into our universities, as if our universities don't have enough problems already. So you do that. And so I think that that's something that's been very good. We've also done things to limit their ability to fund research in our universities. I think we're going to go even further than that. The legislature only went so far a couple years ago. I think there's an appetite to do even more because their influence in our society has been very insidious. If you look, very powerful in entertainment. They're very powerful in finance. I mean, you will have some of these Disney, they will change things to be able to placate the CCP. Wall Street will bend to placate the CCP. But it's a larger issue, and we're just one. Yes, we are a pretty big fish now. I mean, I think we have the 13th or 14th biggest economy in the world if we were our own country in Florida. So, we're a force to be reckoned with. But, from the broader U.S. economy, we're way too intertwined with China economically, and it hurts us. It hurts our economic vitality. It hurts our security. I mean, when COVID hit, people needed all these supplies. I think like 100% of it was made in China. Why would you want a hostile nation to rely on a hostile nation for things that are integral for our quality of life and security? Of course, you wouldn't want to do that. But this has been going on for many, many decades. So disentangling from China, I think is something that's very, very significant going forward. And, And you're not going to see people acknowledge that, they do this thing in Davos. They're doing it next week. All these elites come in, the World Economic Forum, and basically, their vision is they run everything, and everybody else is just like a serf, like a peasant. They say they're going after energy, ESG, all these other things. And you see the Biden administration wants to nix gas stoves. Are you kidding me? Like I want gas stoves. I mean, imagine the people had the hurricane come through, didn't have power right away, but were able to turn on some. So you cannot go down this road, but that's exactly what they want to do. And it's really weakening Western society, Western values, but underlying a lot of that is the CCP. Those people are there, they're elites, but Xi is really kind of the puppet behind the curtain on a lot of this stuff. So very, very problematic, I think, in the direction they want to go. And what I've said in Florida is that type of stuff coming out of Davos, those policies are dead on arrival in the state of Florida. Okay, everybody, make sure you come to Coconut Jack's very soon. They'll announce when the doors are back open, and we'll be back soon as well to do some more hurricane assistance. So stay tuned on that. Thank you very much. Which way? This guy?